Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. So we've got some fighter aircraft for you today. Now I've put this video in the educational section of our YouTube. I'm not entirely sure it's going to be educational at all. Like the one we did yesterday with the SAMs, I think it's just going to be more interest and fun than education. But hey, interest and fun, everyone needs that in their life, otherwise they can become miserable and depressed. So this is going to keep us interested. Now this picture I found on the internet. You know, most of the pictures I get I pinch from the internet because I'm, you know, sit down and draw all these aeroplanes, and all I've done is cut them up and make it into a cool, you know, attractive thing. Whoever did this picture in real, you know, actually made the pixels and did the picture is my hero. If you are watching, come forward and I will give you everything I own, because it's just the best. You know, it's just the best thing in the world. This is my pawn show.
You need to learn to stop saying that on public forum. Someone might take you seriously.
Okay, I won't give you everything I own, but I'm going to give you a big sloppy kiss and a personal thumbs up.
Run while you can.
Yes, because it's great. Look, I mean, this is the kind of thing that gets me going. Show and look at all the aeroplanes. Now, I don't know if it's every fighter aircraft ever made. I mean, how many is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 20.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say outright that that's not every fighter aircraft ever made, for the simple reason that I don't see any World War I biplanes here.
Okay, fine. Okay, I reckon it's near as damn. Certainly everything that's in DCS is here. Now, I can't zoom in. Be advised, I can't zoom in. This is the, you know, the maximum resolution of it, if you like. So the writing's going to be hard to read, but we can just about make it out. Now, oh, right, I should say why we're doing this. It's a size, technically it's a size comparison graph, okay? So the guy, whoever made this, has scaled these aeroplanes, excuse me, to the nearest, you know, few pixels. I know it's not perfectly accurate, so in reality it'll probably be accurate to within about half a foot or something like that, but you know, it's as accurate as we need to talk about the sizes, and we'll talk about the sizes and we'll just go down the list and have some fun really, and talk about our favourite planes and why they're our favourite planes and blah 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 blah. You know, a bit of fun. Everyone needs some fun, right? And maybe we'll learn something along the way. So at the top left, German ADC, that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. ADC A1 Chung Kao. And at the top left is an ADC, so that's the person who makes it. And it's hard to read because obviously the resolution. And it's an A1 Ching Kao. Someone's copied a Hornet, slightly shrunk it, I think. And look at the size of the man by it. Yeah, so that's that.
Yeah.
But see, this is the thing.
ADC FCK1 Shinkao.
Shinkao, yeah. And now, did you know that existed? No, you didn't. Did I know it existed? No, I didn't. Did the viewers know it existed? Not really.
It does look suspiciously like a Hornet. In fact, it looks like it looks like somebody. It looks like somebody asked a 5-year-old to draw plans for a Hornet and kind of got the lines wrong.
What is it? Chinese? Must be.
Republic of China, and Republic of China is Taiwan. Remember?
Okay, I didn't know that. Now that's controversial, isn't it? Because I believe that Taiwan was trying to break away from China. The risk of being geopolitical. So is it Taiwanese, do we think? It's,
well, Taiwanese, or if you're trying to keep the Chinese happy, Republic of China, Chinese.
How interesting. Is it, I only get a side view, is it twin-engined? Or is it pretty single engine if it's Chinese?
Definitely twin-engine. There's the same dual intakes. This definitely appears to be in the same vein as the Hornet. Let me just read up the history. I'm probably being extremely ignorant and not realizing that it's probably directly connected.
We can't be expected to know 200 aeroplanes, Sherman. Obviously, we're just going to...
Yes, but I'm looking at a Wikipedia article, so...
Oh, the Tiger Shark's in here. Oh, shit. I can't wait to go down this list. This is interesting.
Right, so, speaking of the Tiger Shark, apparently this thing was developed because the US refused to sell any Tiger Sharks to ROCAF.
Ah, that's interesting. So where have all these bloody Chinese aircraft come from? I see more and more Chinese aircraft, and I can see a bunch on our list. Probably.
Well, I think this one's a bit of an outlier, because this one's the Republic of China rather than the People's Republic of China.
Ah, that's interesting. And my understanding is that they got fed up of... Now, the internet will hate me, but they already hate me, so it doesn't matter. My understanding of China is that military doctrine is that they got a world of pain in World War II, which they did, obviously, and then they decided, right, we're never going to happen again. You know, we're going to defend ourselves. The Japanese can never get us again, and blah blah blah. And then they kicked out their... You know, they whirled up a big military industrial complex, and now they're absolutely killing it with some amazing aircraft and stuff. What we've got J11, they've got the Sukhois, and they've got their own in-house built stuff like this ADC, all this stuff.
So basically, they're trying to go from a mass wave attack as they used to do in the Korean War to more advanced stuff that's competitive with modern stuff. So yes, they do go for the more advanced thing, but again, you're talking about the People's Republic of China here. This is the Republic of China, which has it comes from the same vein of history, except they were essentially the old Chinese government who were then exiled to the island, which in China is known as Formosa, but is now known as Taiwan in various parts of the world.
Taiwan, roger, interesting.
So basically, they were for a long time reliant on purely, in fact, for the most part, reliant purely on the defense of the US. In fact, it was the ROCAF Air Force that was the first to use Sidewinders in combat off of F-86 Sabres against MiG-17s from China, mainland China.
What the hell is an Atlas Cheetah C? Who makes it?
Now this one I know, because this one is very South African. Sort of. So basically, an Atlas Cheetah is a Frankenstein Mirage 3.
I was going to say that.
So basically, in sort of 1980s, early 90s, South Africa was under heavy arms embargo, and they couldn't get any more new planes. And the newest thing that they currently had at the time were their Mirage F1s, and they needed to upgrade. And so after doing some under-the-table research agreements with the Israelis, they basically took their existing Mirages, added some additions to make the airframe aerodynamic, and added modern multi-role avionics. And that is how we end up with the Atlas Cheetah, which is basically a massively long-nosed Mirage 3 with some serious redesigns. Now, the Atlas Cheetahs in the South African Air Force have all been removed from service, but I do know, I can't remember the name of the company in question, but there is an US-based company that acts as an aggressor air force for events like Red Flag, has purchased and intends to fly several of these Atlas Cheetahs as aggressor aircraft during these training exercises.
So they're still going then?
Yes.
Wow. Nice knowledge there, Sherman. Okay, I don't have any more questions about that. It looks identical to a Mirage 3, a stretched Mirage 3. I completely agree with that. Okay, that's fine.
If you look at the nose, though, it does look a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
How long it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, it really sticks out. Okay, Avia. Never heard of this. Avia, and then a picture of a Messerschmitt Bf-109 and an ME-262 comment? 263 comment? Oh, my brain. Anyway, it's called, here's the thing. It's called Avia, but that's clearly a Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Messerschmitt ME-262. Can you check that?
Have you noticed something on the back or the tail of those planes? Doesn't that look like a Czech flag?
Okay, but question mark, because the Czechs have never been allied to Germany in the war. They weren't allied to Germany in the war, so what's it all about?
They were occupied, I think.
They were occupied, yeah. It's weird. Why doesn't it say Messerschmitt? Why doesn't it? There's something weird. Type in Avia S99 and see what it comes up with.
Avia S199.
Looks like a Fokker.
Propeller-driven aircraft. It is a variant of the Messerschmitt, primarily used by the Israeli Air Force during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War.
That makes even less sense. The Israelis have got a hold of Messerschmitts. Right, internet, we need your help. Avia, what is this all about? Why is Avia in the hands of the Israelis and they've got the Messerschmitts? I don't know this part of history at all.
So basically, it would appear that during the war, the Avia factory in what was then Czechoslovakia was commandeered by the Wehrmacht to produce Messerschmitt Bf-109G6 variants. After the war, they basically built them under the name Avia S99.
There we go. How interesting. I never knew that part of history existed. We're learning. Look, we've done 5 planes and we've learnt more than I've learnt this week. This is very, very good. Okay, so you see which planes they are. You can obviously see, even though they're low resolution, what planes they are. And they're under the Avia name now, being built in the Czech Republic for use around the world. How fascinating. Okay, fine. Next, Avro. And here is where we get bat poo crazy. These are the big mummers. First of all, the Charlie Foxtrot 100 Canuck. What the deuce is that? That doesn't look like a fighter plane. If that's a fighter plane, I'll eat my hat, Sherman.
I'm pretty sure that's the development of the Gloucester Meteor, actually, just looking at the profile. But let me confirm that before somebody murders me.
Cap thinks a meteor is about half the size of that, and I'm going to prove that by finding it. Gloucester, 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 ABCG, Me, there's the meteor, yeah. I see where you got that from, Sherman, actually. It does look very much like the meteor. I do have to give you that. It is all, yeah, slightly different. The meteor is a lot bigger than I thought. I had no idea it was that big.
So probably not. It's probably not anything to do with the Gloucester Meteor, from what I'm reading here. But they definitely used engineers out of the UK in designing this aircraft.
Interesting. So this is, we're talking late 40s, early 50s, late 40s.
Early
Gloucester Meteor. Okay. That's cool. So I miss a big old bird. Look, I'm going to put it next to a tomcat. It's nearly as big as a tomcat. That's a big plane.
This is your classic example of early 1950s jets. It still has flat wings and a raised tailplane.
Yeah,
stuff which, by today's standards, is a disaster waiting to happen.
So this is subsonic, obviously, and Avro. That was Canada, wasn't it? Avro was Canada.
Yes.
Okay, so that's that. Now we've got the Beast. This is like this. So according to this chart, at least, this is the second biggest fighter plane ever to be. I know it wasn't fully made, but you know, in existence, apart from the Tupolev Fiddler, which is just, I'm about to find out, and then I'm about to pressure ED into making it because it's just so amazing. Anyway, let's get back to CF-105 Arrow. Oh my God, look at that thing. Now, I watched a documentary on it. Oh, it was a long time ago. Though it was Canada, and it was a supersonic Bear Interceptor, wasn't it? And it was planned to be the best thing, best fighter in the world. Twin seat. I'm trying to think. Double engine, Mach 2. High Mach 2s, wasn't it? What do you know about it? I know it was meant to be the best thing in the world.
I'm reading the blurb here. Held the promise of a near Mach 2 speed at altitudes of 50,000 feet and was intended to serve RCAF as an interceptor into the 60s and beyond.
And it was way ahead of its time. So we're talking F-15 capability, or nearly F-15 capability, in terms of how fast it could fly and high and climb and whatnot. And I think it was in the late 50s it was developed, or in the mid 50s. So when we didn't even have the Tomcat, and the Phantom and stuff. So
yeah, its first flight was in 1958, and it was cancelled in 1959
by bloody Trudeau Senior, bloody Canadian politics. They should have made that. It was a beautiful plane. I know it never would have, you know, didn't have to defend its country and whatnot, but it should have been made. It was superb engineering. It would have made Cap happy if we had some of these in Duxford, in a museum. I've just gone off on a tangent there. You know what the TSR-2 is, don't you? TSR 72? Oh, come on, Cat. You know the one I mean, don't you?
The name rings a bell.
It's not on here because it was a bomber, and we've got one at RAF Duxford Museum in UK, and it's the sexiest thing you'll ever see. When I get my camera, and somehow I'll get you over to England, we're going to go and document it because it's going to be awesome. Anyway.
The BAC TRC-2, right?
No, the TRS-2 or TRS-72. Type that, and it should come up with it. It should be near enough.
So I got the back TSR-2.
TSR-2. There he is, TSR-2.
What a strange looking airplane.
It's strange, but it was so ahead of the time. It was a supersonic, low or high level bomber, I can't remember now. British, of course. Twin seat, and it was nearly Mach 3, I remember. And we're talking in the 50s here. And, like...
I can see why it was cancelled. This thing was designed to be a rear-line nuclear bomber. So you just basically fly through the airspace at supersonic speed, drop a nuke, get out.
And again, hugely ahead of its time. Supersonic cruise, Mach 2.
Look, its capabilities were valid, but its mission was, well, outdated.
Roger. I wanted them to make it, and it looks actually crazy. Anyway, there is one at Duxford, and when I get my body back and working, we are going to go and film it, and it's going to be amazing. Right, so that is the CF-105 Arrow, and it's awesome, and I want it. Next, we've got the Harriers. Woo woo, British. So we've got the Harriers. I don't know. I should know a lot about these. I don't know a huge amount of these. So the AV-8B is an American version, right? So that was not here because it's not BAE?
So, as the wiki article says, the original is the Hawker Sidley Harrier.
Yeah, so that was the original one, which I'm pointing at with my thing here. I know it wasn't the true original, but... Oh, yes, the Mark 1. It's the Mark 1 with the pointy nose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that they got big bubbly noses later on, but they never actually had radars, did they? Our Aviate-B doesn't have a radar.
Depends on the variant. The Sea Harrier definitely had a radar, for example.
Harrier has a radar. How interesting. Yeah, I didn't know there was this many variants. It's a bit like the Tornado. Bunch of variants. I don't know the difference between them.
Yeah,
And they're all completely different.
so the GR variants are essentially
Ground attack, isn't it?
all of the British variants. The Aviate A, B, C were the designations for the US Marine Corps. The Aviate A being like the original design. I believe the original plan for the first set of Harriers when the British Armed Forces was there. Basically, it was a lot faster due to its original engines, a lot less volatile to fly, a lot more volatile, excuse me.
Yeah, of course.
And was designed for nuclear strike.
Whoa, what the hell?
You dropped a nuclear bomb.
Wow, I think everything was nuclear back then. You had nuclear microwaves.
And yes, the Spanish ones were apparently Aviate S's, also nicknamed Matadors. And then you have a whole bunch of training variants.
Roger that. What an exceptional plane, and we're lucky enough to get the Aviate-B in DCS World, our simulator, and it's every time you fly it's more fun. It really is. It's a beautiful aircraft, amazing capabilities. I was just pounding away Mavericks at 10 miles away from my target the other day, or 5 miles away from the target, just like it was a Sunday cruise. Absolutely wonderful things. I should mention at this point, if we've got any aviation experts out there, we'd love to have you on. We always want people to come and help us do these things. If you've got spare time, contact us on the Discord and come and join in. We'll get some.
Yeah, so I don't remember the exact difference in speed, but I do remember the original Aviate-A, or the original Harriers, had different engines to the Aviate-B, which were, I think, substantially higher top speed, and I don't know quite about the thrust.
Okay, that's fine. I know the Pegasus was an absolute beast. Now, where I go to visit when my body allows me is Brundingthorpe, RF Brundingthorpe, a disused airbase in Lincolnshire, UK, and they've got, and it saddens you to the soul, they've got, and they have loads of old fighters there, and we're so lucky to have them, and they run them up and down the runway, and it's an exceptional thing. I always advise anyone who can go, they go. It's like £15 to get in. What was I going to say? Yeah, they've got like 10 Pegasus engines just sitting there, and they can't afford to keep them inside, so they're just outside rusting away, and you can go there and you can spin the wheels and you can climb inside them and stuff like that. Just a bunch of Pegasus sitting around, and what an amazing piece of machinery and engineering it is. And when you go there and have a look and you think, God, how did you mould this piece of tungsten or whatever it is? It's absolutely essential. Anyway, we've got to move on to the Harrier, Sherman. Can't be British all the time. Chance Vort. Now Vort was a big player in the 50s, as I remember. It had the Corsair, didn't it? That was the Vort.
Yeah, well, Vort Crusader was 40s, but yes, the Vort Corsair.
The 40s, yeah. But didn't they make the Corsair 2 though as well, or am I thinking of someone else?
No, let's see, who did make the Corsair? Hang on, let me think about this. Corsair 2, which is the A7.
It's the A7. And I've got it. No, I've got it, Sherman. It's here. It's Vort. Right, scratch that. We've got Chance Vort and Vort. They've separated it in here, so let's just carry on. So Chance Vort. So this must be in. I don't know when it was.
Yeah,
the pirate. I remember the pirate.
It turns out I was slightly wrong. The Vort company did make the F8 Crusader, which is basically the fighter / larger version of the A7.
Beautiful plane. Yeah. Okay, right. So back to Chance Vort. They've got the Pirate and the Cutlass. I remember these. These were aircraft landing planes. Eric Winkle Brown. If you know about him, if you don't know, research him because he's a hero. I think he was the first guy to land the Cutlass and the Pirate, I think, on aircraft carriers, and they were aircraft. I mean, look at them; they're funny little dinky things. What, they're 50s? They're 50s, aren't they? They must be 50s. Late 40s, 50s, and they're early jet aircraft-based planes. I mean, landing them must have been very interesting. There were a lot of lessons learned back then. Probably a lot of these crashed, I imagine, but not that I don't know. But okay, they're interesting. I'd love to see an exhibit of these at some point, and love to go and document them in real life. But awesome. Okay, Chengdu. So we're back to China. We've got the JF-17, I think that says, which looks Vigany.
Yes.
Grippiny.
So no, it's closer to an F-20 Tiger Shark / F-16.
Single engine.
Interesting fact. A team by the name of Dagger Ironworks are currently working on a module for a DCS for this aircraft.
Ooh, I don't know if Cap likes that. I don't know.
Or why are you complaining? We finally get a Red 4 equivalent to the F-16 in DCS.
I guess. How modern is this thing? You know Cap doesn't like modern. How modern is it? Is it like 2000s?
Again, it's equivalent to the F-16 in capability. So 2 MFCDs capable of Fox 3 firing.
Okay. When was it developed? Do we know?
Wait one, let me get my facts. The JF-17 was developed in, let's see. Well, the first flight was actually in 2003, and it was introduced into service for the Pakistan Air Force in 2007.
Wow. So that's a new goddamn plane. That's like newer than the F-22, man. That's crazy.
Well, in terms of age, yes, but in terms of capability, it's more along the lines of cheaper F-16.
Is that a Delta?
And if you look at it, its body very much represents shape of F-20 Tiger Shark.
Interesting. So it's probably just like a cheap multi-role type thing. I'm guessing it's something along those lines. That. Okay.
Yes,
fine.
we'll allow this. Well, the unit cost is only 25 million.
That is dirt cheap. That is dirt cheap. For nowadays money. Okay, we'll give them that. That's actually pretty cool. Okay, fine. They got the J10A. Now that's an interesting product. I mean, they've really gone out. It's not copied anything, is it? It's the size of F-18, roughly. It's a single tail plane, probably double engine, and it's 4-plane and Eurofighter type 4-plane and Delta. Is that right?
So yeah, it's fairly similar to the Eurofighter in shape and capacity. Single engine fighter though.
Oh, single engine, right? Interesting. I wonder why they've done that. Okay, fair enough. Anything fancy about it or special about it? Doesn't look particularly stealthy.
Fairly modern. Let me just check the date. Yeah, but yeah, it has liquid crystal MFDs. Helmet mounted sight is claimed. Let's see. Functional radar, which is ACER most likely. It's armed with the Russian GS-H-23, which is fairly common on most Russian/Chinese aircraft, and can carry a variety of air and air-to-air and air-to-ground missiles.
How interesting. Okay, it looks unstable. It looks maneuverable as well.
So it's introduced. Well, its first flight was in 1998, and it was introduced into a formal service in 2006, apparently.
2006. So it's a modern plane. I mean, there's one thing they seem to have got on us is their planes are modern. Ours are old. Our F-18s are old. Our F-15s are 40 years old. We've got old stuff. So all right.
I mean, you say that, but they're not really that old. They are.
When I go to RAF...
Well, I mean, there's F-35s coming out now.
Yeah, I know they're brand new, but... All right. Okay, but they're not...
The other thing you have to bear in mind is this is also effectively a Gen 4/4.5 aircraft, so it is still comparable.
Yeah, okay, fine. Anyway, Commonwealth. I didn't know this thing existed. Now this is interesting. There's a Commonwealth Sabre, which looks exactly the same as our Sabre. Our F-86 Sabre up here. It's a copy of it. I can see that.
It's a licensed production in Canada.
And there is a copy of a P-40. What is the copy of the upper one? Is that a P-40 copy? Or... No, I can't remember.
That does not look like no P-40 to me.
No, P-47 I meant to say P-47. What's the jug? I've forgotten what the jug is.
P-47.
Yeah, P-47. It looks like a jug to me. Copy, and it's a big old thumper compared to the BF-109 and stuff like that. So I'm certain that's the.
That doesn't look like a P-47. It looks like a fat P-51 to me.
Lols.
No. Looking at the.
That's a radial, Sherman. That's a radial.
Yeah, but if you look at the shape of the airframe, it looks like a fat P-51.
Well, I haven't got much to work with here, but okay. Anyway, so you said it was a licensed China thing. Is that what we got from that?
No, this is the CA-15 Kangaroo, which I'm assuming means it's Australian.
But what I was saying, Commonwealth. Who's Commonwealth? What country?
This one originates from Australia, Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation.
Okay, so these were licensed things in Australia. How interesting. Didn't know this existed.
Not necessarily.
They've got Frenchies. Sabre's
Although the CA-15 bore a superficial resemblance to the North American P-51, the design was not based directly on the American aircraft and had quite different performance characteristics.
Right, so it's a standalone aircraft. Fair enough, Commonwealth. I'm glad you existed. Okay, fine. Commonwealth. Interesting. I'll do more research on that at some point. Corsair. Now, we all know Corsair. Not the... That does say Corsair, doesn't it?
Hang on, let me zoom in.
Oh, my brain, Shem. My poor brain. Is it Corsair? Who made the Delta?
Where are you looking?
With bottom left of my picture, the Delta Dart. Who made the Delta Dart? I thought it was... No, Convair! I remember. Convair. Right.
Yes.
Right. I'm getting there, Chairman. Now, this was an interesting company. Really interested in Convair. They made some interesting planes, and they really pushed the boundaries, in my opinion. Look what we've got. First of all, Sea Dart. Never heard of that. What the heck is a Sea Dart?
Hang on.
It's like an X-15 bloody X1 rocket plane. It can't be an aeroplane.
That's what they said about the Sea Hurricane.
So it's a Foxtrot 2 Yankee Sea Dart.
Yes, I see. The Convair F2Y Sea Dart was an American seaplane fighter that rode on two thin hydroskis during takeoff and landing. So yes, it's a seaplane, a jet seaplane, so I can imagine why this thing never took off. Pun intended.
Roger, okay, that's interesting. Then we've got the F-102 Delta Dagger and the F-106 Delta Dart. So these were mid to late 50s, I think, as my memory's going. And we got up to Mach 2 here. Now, I can't remember the Dagger. I remember the Dagger. There was something wrong with the Dagger. I remember it had pointy delta wings or something, and it kept crashing, I think. And the 106 was the revised version. It was a Mach 2 capable interceptor to shoot down bombers and stuff, and it was absolutely sick, I remember. Now, I always thought it was a small plane, but I put it up here, and we're bigger than Tomcat. It's bigger than Tomcat. It's massive. What do we know about Delta?
So these planes were designed in an era, basically, when the primary threat would have been waves of Tu-4 bombers trying to drop nuclear bombs instead of cruise missiles. And we were in the era before the Fox 1, Fox 2 method of combat was the primary method for air combat. So the only way you could do it was to get up to these ridiculous heights at which the bombers would be traveling at speed, fly through them, release a barrage of air-to-air rockets, smash them, and then come back down and let somebody else have a go.
How fascinating. So we're in this weird period between kind of like World War II fighters and F-15s. We've got the pace of the F-15 nearly, but the weapons of the old World War II planes. It's crazy.
Yes.
And now
so basically, this thing obviously never really got to get used for its intended purpose in the air-to-air role because the Soviets never bombed the United States and Cold War never went hot. And it did see limited air-to-ground service in the Vietnam War. The logic was that the radars could be used to detect targets on the ground. But because the thing mostly didn't even have any proper guns, it was not particularly effective.
Roger that. I mean, that's an impressive piece of machinery. I'd love to have seen one fly. Is it single or must be double engine to get up to Mach 2? It must have been.
I'm certain that's a single engine plane.
This is pre J79 engine, so it can't be kicking out more than £15,000. How does that get to Mach 2 on one engine? Can't.
It's that delta wing configuration.
That just must be dragless. How does it say what the engine is, out of interest?
It's
obviously an afterburning unit of some kind, but...
Engine. Pratt & Whitney J57
so we're old.
With a 55 afterburning turbojet.
That is old. That can't kick out a lot of power, man. That must have been...
Its dry thrust is just under 12,000 pounds. With afterburner, it's just above 17,000 pounds.
17, okay. Yeah, okay, that sounds about right. And somehow, the 17,000 pounds, which is 60% of what an F-15 engine is, got to Mach 2 at high level. So, I mean, it's impressive. I don't know how they did it, but it's impressive. It looks like a heavy plane as well. Okay.
It only has a thrust to weight ratio of 0.7.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's obvious. Right, how interesting. Anyway, I'm sure there's lots more interesting on the Delta Dart, but we'll move on for now. Right, and that moves us on to the Frenchies Dassault. Now, here's my thought, Sherman, about France, and I know I always get myself into trouble, and this will probably be no different, but there's a lot of stigma against France for being, you know, kind of in World War II and stuff, because they obviously got trampled on and stuff, and they say they're defeatists and whatnot. However, I own a French car, and I like Renault. I think they're great French cars, and more importantly, I think they make absolutely fantastic aeroplanes. Since World War II, since the early 50s, I think they've made some really pucker planes. I love the Mirage series. I love the Raffle air shows. I think it's absolutely immense aircraft. But anyway, let's get down. So, can you see that first one? Mike Delta 450. I can't read them. The top one, Super Misfire. That's an interesting name. What? Those didn't exist. What were those? When were they?
Sorry, Mystere, I think you're reading.
Mystere. When was that? What was it? A Super Sabre? Supersonic thing?
No, subsonic would have been... Basically, this thing preceded the Mirage series of aircraft that used the initial version of the Mirage's engines without afterburners, etc.
Now, I didn't know they existed. Super Misfire. Have a look at that. That must maybe
Mystere, not Misfire.
Oh yeah, Mystere. So have a look at Super Mystere. That's got to be supersonic. I bet that was the F100 style of Mirage. And what date is this? What date is the Mystere and Super Mystere?
The Dassault Super Mystere was... Let's see, when was it introduced? Doesn't actually have a date of introduction here.
Oh, that's a shame.
But it does say that they were produced between 1956 and 1959.
Exactly what I thought. Late 50s. Yep. Does it say the Super Mystere? Is that supersonic?
That is Super Mystere.
Sorry?
I'm talking about the Super Mystere here.
Does it say it's supersonic? I'm just trying to place the date, how far advanced they were for their date. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Let's see, maximum speed Mach 1.212.
So it's just supersonic. Okay, so they're a bit behind. So they were behind at that point. Then, at least in terms of speed.
Well, the reason being is it doesn't have a supersonic engine. It uses the ATAR 101, but it uses a variant that does not seem to have an afterburner.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Whereas the previous version, the Dassault Mystere, produced between 1953 and 1958.
Right, okay, so this is the early predecessor to the Mirage. And then we get into what we know as, you know, the Mirage is now. It starts at Mirage 3. Is that the first one, a Mirage 3, do you think?
Mirage 3 is the first one that saw mass service.
Right, and that is what we know as the first kind of Mirage. Look, I mean, that's the first delta wing, pointy nose, supersonic. What are we now? Mid 60s, late 60s.
It was introduced formally in 1961.
60, yep, that's right. So there we go. And I mean, you still see these in Argentina, don't you?
You see them basically all over the world. So, for example, you see them in South Africa, Pakistan, Israel, Australia.
Right. Okay. So that's that. Now we're talking Mach 2, aren't we? Mach 2 Interceptor.
0.1.
Oh, well, I know it became multi-role, but
looking here just for the spec. Maximum speed is 1,269 knots according to this.
I can do that. I can do that. That is nearly Mach 2, Germain. That is that's Mach 2ish. Yep. So that's a beast of an aeroplane. I think there's a lot of call for that in DTS, isn't there? I don't see why. We've already got Mirage 2000. I don't see why we need a Mirage 3. It's just an inferior Mirage. Okay. So then this is pre-fly-by-wire, obviously. So this is by the seat of your pants, with, you know, boosted controls, obviously. But you're flying it yourself. No, you couldn't control a Delta back then, could you? Then this goes back to the problems they had with the The Delta Dart, they kept crashing. Delta Dagger.
Yeah, you could if you knew what you were doing.
They must have been dangerous things to fly, though, mustn't they? They must be unstable.
Oh, fighter jets in general are dangerous things to fly.
No, they're not. They're not with flybo. Why? You try and crashing a Hornet, and you struggle to crash a Hornet.
And you tell that to a real Hornet pilot.
Yeah, so, alright, fair enough. Now, annoyingly, they missed my favourite Mirage, which is the Mirage 4 out, because it was a bomber and not a fighter. This is fighter aircraft only, obviously.
Well, incorrect again. There are multiple variants of the Mirage, because this is in the day before multi-role. So, the Mirage 3As were the attackers used in ground attack, and the Cs were for fighter variants.
No, I'm talking about the Mirage 4. My comment was, they haven't got the Mirage 4 in here. The Mirage 4 was the big twin engine, and it's massive. It was like, looks like this, but it was like kapow right out there. But I know Mirage 4 did carry sidewinders, but they never considered it a fighter. It was a big twin engine mother that was going to drop nuclear bombs on people, and it was awesome. And I'll never get to see one. Oh, if I ever get to France, I'd love to go and see one. Okay, anyway, enough of that nonsense. Now the Mirage 5. Now what the deuce is this? It looks just like a Mirage 3, but 1 foot longer, 2 feet longer. What was the Mirage 5? When was it out? And why did it exist?
So, on the wiki page of the Mirage 3, the next major variant, the Mirage 5, grew out of a request to Dassault from the Israeli Air Force. Let's see if there's anything else here.
So was the Mirage 5 in the 6-Day War then? Or was it Mirage 3?
It doesn't say, although ironically enough the Egyptian, Pakistan Air Forces also used them.
Roger that.
Let's see, the Israelis placed 50 orders. Who are they used by?
I think that was in the 6th.
Yeah, they were modified into Neshas, I believe.
How interesting. Okay, so that's that. Again, we're pre-fly-by-wire here. We're 6-Day War was 1967. So
the main difference here appears to be 2 additional hard points and the removal of provisions for rocket engines that you had on the Mirage 3.
Okay, for fast start. Okay, cool. Next, Mirage F1. I remember this from my model building days when I was a tiny little baby. Now we're not Delta anymore. So riddle me this: when was this in service? And I found it interesting they've gone back from a Delta back to a traditional layout of a front wing or a mid wing and an elevons or elevators.
So this one actually grew out of something, a bit of a cooperation between the South African Air Force and Dassault. Basically, they wanted a new fighter that was more capable than their existing Mirage 3s. And yeah, for some reason they decided the way that they were going to do that was to go with a more conventional wing layout. Anyway, so the South Africans ended up getting hold of several Mirage 3Cs and F1Cs and F1As. Humorously enough, the slang name for this aircraft was the Vlamgat, or the Flaming Arse.
Lols.
And yeah, this thing served actively on the border wars and in combat in Angola against MiG-21s and MiG-23s, majority of which I believe were Cuban flown.
Wow. Oh, we're going to have to look at that. I've got something to talk to you about this after the show. We've got some.
But yes, these aircraft also have extensive service history with a number of countries, including in the Iran-Iraq War, where Mirages. I think a Mirage actually managed to shoot down a F-14, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yes. So let's see.
These are little beasties, and this is single engine. Yes, Mirage F1.
Yeah. So the one major difference that was applied to South African Mirage F1Cs, I'm not sure about the A's, but they invented the first example of a helmet-mounted sight for guiding infrared missiles that was ever in use.
This is the thing about the French and
the South African innovation on their aircraft.
Oh. Well, okay, but the French aircraft, at least, anyway, if you know what I mean, the Dassault company, they got a lot of firsts in them. They do have a lot of firsts. It's like, fair enough, fair play. If you're gonna, you got those engineers and you got that, Anyway, that's cool. All right, Mirage F1, good plane, we like it. Do we want it in DCS? Probably. It's quite cool.
It's actually in development by Avro Dev, although they are developing the Spanish variants, the F1 CE and the EE, which I believe is an upgraded multi-role variant.
Cool, very good. All right, Mirage 2000. Now we know this. We've got this in DCS. So this, we're coming into the 80s now, and it's a modernised version. I've always considered it myself a modernised version of the Mirage 3. It's a Mach 2 or very near Mach 2 fighter. The addition, it's Delta Wing. It's the addition of fly-by-wire or something very similar to fly-by-wire. I think it's proper fly-by-wire, wasn't it?
Yes,
it was modernisation for the 2000s, basically.
Yes, so originally introduced in the 1980s, specifically 1984 according to this. The original Mirage 2000C, which we have, was the fighter variant that was equipped with a digital radar display capable of launching 2 Fox 1s, 2 Fox 2s, which was a improvement over the previous aircraft, which typically could only carry 1 or 2 of the older generation variants of the Super. So this was sort of the most modern available Mirage missile variant, and its job within the French Air Force was essentially to do the interceptor role. If Soviet bombers were coming into attack, these things would be called in to intercept and take them out, go home, basically. Let the US forces do the long-range attacks with their F4 Phantoms.
Yeah, so this is late Cold War. This is coming to the end of the close, and
they're 15th Amendment.
And and so literally it's designed to just take off a runway, shoot up to the bombers when they're above Germany or whatever, and take them out of the sky. But
yeah, so these were upgraded into Mirage 2000-5s, which had the ability to gain more pylons along the center line, as well as use the French fire and forget Mica missile, which basically turned it into a Fox 3 capable fighter.
How interesting. Oh, that is very interesting.
And in addition to that, the UAE and the Indian Air Force, and in fact it says here the Taiwanese Air Force, ROCAF, actually uses this fighter as well.
Right. Okay. Very well-known plane. We get them. We're lucky to have them fly in pairs at Riot every year in the UK. Always very impressive. And we have them at DCS, and we know them kind of back to front. Wonderful aircraft. Amazing in a dogfight. Energy conservation is just off the chart. That bloody thing. But anyway, right, we must move on. Raffle. So this is Dassault in the 2000s, basically. Moving on, introducing stealth, introducing the latest tech. So direct upgrade from the 2000. Really, got twin engines. On paper, now here's the interesting thing about the Raffle. On paper, I've never found it particularly impressive. It's not particularly powerful. It's not particularly fast. Doesn't carry a particularly huge loadout compared with other planes. But when you see it in the flesh, and again, it's at Riot every year so far. For the last 5 years. Also, it's a really impressive plane to watch. Maybe it's just the displays they do. It really has a certain aura about it. It's, I guess you'd say, it's equivalent to the EF2000, the Typhoon. Although it's a different design, it has kind of more traditional side inlets. It is Delta and Wing of 4-plane. Although interestingly, the 4-plane. I call them 4-planes. What's the proper word for them? There's
canards.
Canards, yeah, but whatever. But yeah, the front wingy bits. I always found them not very far forward on this aircraft, which I found interesting. If you look at...
Remember, the point of a canard isn't necessarily to be in front. It's just meant to be in the ideal place to provide control/lift from the airflow. But
bouncing back on that, I remember an interview from a Typhoon pilot. I'm desperately searching to try and find it. Who makes Typhoon?
Eurofighter?
Looking... Oh, there it is. Yep, well done. Eurofighter. There's the Eurofighter. So that's my baby, my Typhoon. Now you'll notice you can't really see in this picture, but the wing, the main wing is back there, and the 4-plane is right at the front, right there. And he was saying, why is the Eurofighter so good in a fight, in a close fight? It's because that 4-plane is so far forward. It gives you a huge lever, torque of pitch, a huge pitch control, almost like a flanker when you turn the fly-by-wire off. And I just found it interesting that it's so far back on the Raffle. You got much less of a lever torque force there. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, you can make that same argument for the Vixen and I think the Gripen as well. So
yes, absolutely. But anyway, it's just an interesting thing I thought. Now it's single tailplane, dual engines. I find the engines a bit puny, but
arguably so. Another interesting thing is it's carrier capable.
Okay, yeah, but to be honest, fast, powerful engines are only so useful in certain places anyway. So I'm sure it's an excellent plane, a modern helmet mounted sight, all of the good stuff. I'm sure, absolutely capable, and stealth in there. I'm sure as well. What do you call this? Gen 4.5, I suppose so. Yeah. So
it's Gen 4.5, so it does have designs for things like reduced radar, cross section, etc. It's obviously not a total stealth aircraft, but it is designed with a bit of stealth in mind.
And it's something we won't ever be seeing in DCS, at least for decades, because we only, we only go up to the 90. We go up to 1990 basically in DCS.
Well, I mean, at the moment we're basically 2005, 2006 is the highest you'll ever see in DCS at the moment.
What's that? That must be something weird.
HNC in the F18 Block 20 or Lot 20, excuse me.
Okay, fine. Right,
those are both aircraft originally designed in the 80s, so...
Right, we're slowing down, John. We must carry on to Haveland Vampire. Absolute beast of a plane. These are the ones that get crashing, weren't they? Vampire.
Yes, there was that horrific crash recently.
Yeah, there was, wasn't there? Now, didn't this go supersonic? Didn't Winkle or someone get this thing supersonic? No, it wasn't. Who was it?
I do not recall.
It oscillated when it was getting transonic, and they kept crashing at that oscillation period, and then they had to change the tailplane. Someone smarter than me will know about the Vampire. But okay, so you got to Haveland, you got the Sea Vixen. Now, one thing I didn't know was how big the Sea Vixen was. We're at nearly F14 size. I had no idea it was so big. And I can't read the second one, so I can't remember what it is. The Venom, I remember. De Haveland Venom. What period were these at? Sea Vixen, Venom, and Vampire must have been late 50s.
These would have been late 40s, early 50s.
Early 50s, right. And they look pretty advanced, to be honest.
Not if you look inside of if you look at it from a top-down view of the Vampire and the Venom, you suddenly realise it's got a P-38 style tail boom, and you realise it's actually not that great.
Yeah, it's fair play. So if you span these on there, so you can see from the top view, you got a twin boom at the back. Why they did that, I don't know. It's just
this is in the era before a high speed was the meta of the day, let's call it.
And you had the engine in the middle, so like a mid-engine vehicle. It's very, very odd. Must have been interesting to fly. Must be quite well balanced actually, but okay, fine. Anyway, then that, and it just had guns obviously, and unguided goals. Right, Douglas. And this is interesting. A can't read it.
Sky Knight.
Sky Knight and a Sky Ray? What the deuce is Douglas? Now, I didn't know these existed.
So, Douglas is obviously a US-American aircraft company. You know, the same
McDonnell Douglas?
That became McDonnell Douglas,
How interesting. Nice bit of history there.
Yeah, there is a lot of these companies.
Anything to add to Douglas?
Hold on.
What's Sky Ray? When was it there? I mean,
so I'm on the Sky Knight at the moment. Introduced in 1951.
Weirdest looking fighter ever.
Twin-engined mid-wing fighter jet manufactured by the Douglas Aircraft Company. Designed as a carrier-based all-weather night fighter.
Night fighter.
So remember, this is 1950s night fighter, so it's not like, oh, we'll go out and fly our plane with night vision tonight. It's no. That radar in front of you is meant for like 10 miles, figuring out if there's actually something there in the darkness, kind of night fighter.
I wonder if that's why it's got such a fat nose. It must have had a big radar in there, or an early
yes,
radar.
Remember, this is very early radar, sort of like World War II night fighting style radar.
Yeah, it's probably a very advanced fighter for its...
Yes, for its day, absolutely.
I mean, it's clearly not designed to get to dogfights, but that's not, it's not
it was actually literally involved in the development of the AIM-7 Sparrow.
Interesting. So it must have had a decent radar. It must have an acquisition radar in that case, then.
Yes.
How interesting. And what years was this?
Again, it was
51.
Introduced in 51 and retired in 1970.
Interesting plane. So, and it's 20 years service life, so okay. And Have you got the Sky Ray there? Because that looks like a funky little beast. It looks almost Skyhawky.
Yeah, the F4D Skyray, which was later designated the F6 Fighter Interceptor, introduced in 1956, retired in 64, so not a very long service life.
Interesting little thing. And that must have been a supersonic fighter plane of some sort then. Oh, interesting. Its
maximum speed was 627 knots.
So it was subsonic. How interesting.
It had an APQ-50 radar as well as a fire control radar. Had 4 20mm guns, 2 on the leading edge of the wing or just aft of it, 1 underside the mid-wing. Yeah, so it would seem like there's 2 each. 1 in the wing, probably 2 in the wing, 2 in the fuselage, with 65 rounds per gun. It was capable of carrying AIM-9 sidewinders or rockets or bombs on its pylons.
Oh, cool. Interesting. Okay, fair enough. I know it exists now. Now we bring into the big daddies, Cap's favourite. Cap's favourites. So Cap's favourites are in these, which are essentially pretty much all of the fighter planes in the world. We've got the Lightning is my favourite, the Typhoon's my favourite for the modern, and the Starfighter over here is my favourite. So English Electric Lightning, absolute beast. Now this is Britain at its best. Vulcan, Lightning, Concorde, absolutely when we were shining and had the absolute confidence of the world, and we made this beast. Now what was this? This was early 60s?
1959.
Late, yeah. 59, and we made this. Look, this is engine over engine. So you've got 2 afterburning engines, and now they were afterburning Avros or oh god, my knowledge is gone. They were afterburning
Rolls-Royce Avons.
Avons, there we go. Avon. They were, well, yes, I know because I played one with one before and messed around with it. Avons, they're 2 Avons, dual barreled, so they're one above the other. Now I've forgotten the reason for that. There's a good reason for it. Made a very thin fuselage. It was all about drag reduction. It was all about getting high as fast as you can, as quickly as you can, and that's all that mattered. It didn't matter if it couldn't go far. It didn't matter if it didn't have a fancy radar. It didn't matter if it had fancy missiles. It was just designed to get up as quickly as possible. So to start as quickly as possible, to take off, to fly vertically upwards and attack a Tu-95 or whatever was in the sky at that point. It was going to drop bombs on London, and it did it beautifully well. Now we have these RAF Bruntingthorpe. They can't fly anymore. But they can go up and down the runway, and that's the best part because you're allowed to get like 50 feet away from them when they turn their afterburners on, and even with ear defenders on, they literally destroy your soul. It's such a powerful, fast plane, and as soon I've got a video of this, in fact, on my old Grim Reapers channel when I went there with a camera, and I will do another one, and it just accelerates so quick. I don't know the thruster weight ratios of a light airframe, but the thing took off and it went vertical.
0.78.
0.78. Okay, that's pretty crap. But it was still, for the time, we're talking, if they're talking late 50s, it was incredibly impressive. And it had, this is the later version. You see, the problem with it is it was designed to go up and fly like a few miles and then run out of fuel. So it's the opposite to an F-15 or something, air superiority. And they found that they would take off and run out of fuel after their first burn. And so they added this big dorsal kind of fuel nacelle here, which is that big bump there. It's the only place they could find to add some gas to it, which gave it a little bit more gas. Obviously it ate through gas absolutely ridiculous. The wings were weird swept design. I've never seen anything like it. I don't have a top view here, but if you go and research, have a look at the wings.
Yeah, late 50s, early 60s, before the idea of the Delta wing was in, swept wings were all the rage because that was seen as the way to create functional high-speed aircraft. And then somebody figured out that you could just create a Delta wing and not necessarily fuck with the control surfaces and the ailerons.
And this is such a swept Delta wing on this. You'd expect it to have horrific aileron authority, but I've seen these things spin.
Probably does.
really does. I've seen them spin really far. They must have whopping great ailerons on the bloody thing. Yeah, so you've got this massive intake. I've climbed in one of those before, and it goes direct under the pilot and then to the massive engines. Single tailplane, carried sidewinder. Well, I say sidewinders, they may have been a different type of missile at the time, but you know, sidewinder-esque type missiles. Fox 2s are carried on the top of the wings. That was interesting, and I think it can even carry external fuel tanks on top of the wings. I may have got that wrong, but I think I've seen that. Just a really cool fighter. Everything about it was cool. I want it in DCS. I want it. And yeah, and that's about it, really. QRA, do or die. Last 5 minutes. My kind of aeroplane. That's why I like the 104 so much as well. Right, so that's that. Right, got to get off that. And it's big as well. Look at the size of the bloody thing. And it is, when you see it on that runway, next to a Canberra or something, it's a big bitch. Anyway, Eurofighter, I mean, what can you say? On paper, just really good. Fast, power to weight is literally almost the best of its class. Gets beaten by an Su-35, and I know these numbers don't really mean anything, but they get beaten by an Su-35 and the MiG 35%, you know, the top new Gen 4.5 Russian planes. Maneuverability is, when you see it right, you can see it's probably the most maneuverable thing there. You can chuck it about and do crazy things that most of the other planes can't do. And also it's got its you know, full suite of AMRAAMs and all the modern stuff, you know, all the stuff that, you know, the Raffles got and stuff like that. Anything to add? It sounds unbelievable. The two best sounding planes in the world.
2003 into formal service, first flight in 1994.
Yeah. And it's my
let's see.
And they haven't ruined it with all stealth bollocks like the F-22 and the Pac Fur. It's just a nice plane designed to go fast. I had my buddy used to make the noses for them. Good guy.
So, yeah, so looks like 3 multifunction displays, a nice wide HUD, probably not a multi-role, but another display on the bottom right probably is serving as the warning panel, I'm guessing.
Right, okay. Anyway, lovely plane, but yeah, we've got to crack on. FMA Polq. What? Search FMA. I don't know what it is. It's like a remodeled F.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and suggest that is some sort of South American copy of a Yak-17.
Interesting.
Okay, maybe not a Yak-17, but it definitely looks like it's a copy of a Soviet design.
Yeah, it looks like
FMA IAE-33.
Looks like a MiG-17. That's probably what you meant to say. It looks like a MiG-17.
No, it's a different MiG-17. Does not quite have the tail like that, I think. But I shall be proven wrong in short order, I suspect. Alright, so the FMA Polq, which means arrow, oddly enough, was a fighter jet designed by the famous Kurt Tank in the 1940s. Now, Kurt Tank, if I remember correctly, was the German designer responsible for the Focke-Wulf doors.
How interesting.
Let me double check that.
So he must have been pinched by someone then.
Kurt Tank, German aeronautics, and led the design department of Focke-Wulf from 1931 to 1945. So yeah, this is a very interesting history of an aircraft. So yeah, jet fighter designed in the 1940s in Argentina under the Perón government and built by FMA, Fábrica Militar de Aviones. I've probably horrifically pronounced that. I apologize to anybody who actually speaks Spanish/Portuguese. I don't really care.
Okay.
Let's see. Embodying many of the design elements of the Focke-Wulf TA-183, an unrealized fighter project FMA envisioned it as the successor to the post-war Gloucester Meteor in Argentina. So this thing is essentially a German design, home built in Argentina.
How interesting.
And it was, let's see, first flight in 1950, retired in 1960.
Okay.
Yeah, so these were only 5 were built as prototypes mostly, and one of those was a static test bed.
So it never saw service then?
Yeah, the reason I said it looked like Soviet design, because I was sure I'd seen a Soviet prototype which used almost the exact same principles.
Right.
Right. So yeah, that's an odd one.
Fine. Hello, Tail. Right, we move on to the Vort Crusader. Now, this is an interesting piece of history, and I'm probably going to get it wrong. So, now, there was one or two versions that made it into service, and then there was a third version, the Super Crusader, or had another name, I can't remember, that was going to be nearly Mach 3 capable, but it was cancelled at the last minute because of bureaucracy. Now, so the F8U Crusader, this must have been the main one that made it into service, right?
This one, the F8, is the original fighter variant introduced in 1957 and would on to serve primarily with the US and the French, as far as I'm aware. Specifically US and French navies.
57, okay. And this was carrier capable, wasn't it?
Yes.
And
it is a carrier capable aircraft, and it has search and track radar built in.
Now, it's a single engine. Let me know, what's the speed? What have you got the speed as the F8U called Crusader? I'm trying to place it in the world.
Right, so I don't have the F8U, but I do have the F8E.
That'll do.
Top speed, Mach 186 at Angels 36.
So we're nearly up to Mach 2 here at this point on an able plane. Now, I think it's this one where the whole wing box detaches from the plane and hinges upwards to allow it to fly at an artificial high angle of attack to oh god, how do you explain this, Sherman?
So basically at certain, I think it's either speed or angle of attack, I'll need correction from the comment section on this one, but a section where the wings are attached actually raises all up, and a flat surface essentially appears there, acting as drag, which is useful for slowing down things like landing speeds, etc. And that's not the only unique thing about this plane.
So, as my understanding was, the wing box section can rotate upwards to about 15 degrees or something like that, and so the wing is flying at an angle of attack of 15 degrees or something like that, which is great for the wing. The wing loves that; it can fly nice and slow.
Yeah, but so the body is at a different angle.
Yeah, the body's hanging down by 15 degrees, so he can still see his thing. I mean, it's the only plane I've ever known to do that, and a wonderful way of landing. I mean, it really is, because you've got a high wing loading aircraft here, I imagine, and it's really ingenious way of doing it. You literally unplug the wing, rotate the wing up, and very daring thinking. I must have had all kinds of technical problems developing that. A wing, your wing box is your aeroplane, isn't it? It's what connects you to your aeroplane.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's that. Now, a caveat to this. So this was the one that made it into service, nearly Mach 2. Now, they were developing a super version, a Super Crusader. Now, it may be the wrong name. There may have been another name for it. I can't remember. And I can't remember
Crusader 3.
Crusader 3, there we go. And it was to be the successor of this in the 60s, going up against, I think it was either going up against the F4 Phantom or the F-15 Eagle. Must have been the either the F-15 Eagle.
Roger.
It would have been the Phantom, because the F-15 was an Air Force project.
Right, and the Phantom was kind of just to give you a rough where we are in the world of technology. The Phantom was getting on towards kind of Mach 2, just slightly past Mach 2, I think, high altitude, and the Corsair, Corsair 3. Was going to be a Mach 2.8, which is phenomenal technology, and there was some other amazing things it had as well.
There is actually a screenshot of the wing thing that you're referring to here. You can see it's raised up by the rear section of the fuselage.
Roger, it's hinged. Yeah, it's hinged. An amazing piece of technology. Yeah, but the Crusader 3 got cancelled. It was all bureaucracy at the end of the day. Politicians. Unfortunately, the best projects usually get cancelled. Well, a lot of the time.
Well, there's that, and the weapons arrangement of the F8 Crusader.
Okay, fine. But anyway, that's a piece of history that you should look at, because it's an interesting piece of history, I find.
Right. So, coming on to the F8 Crusader's weapons that I was just talking about, the majority of its air-to-air weapons were actually on side-mounted pylons rather than wing-mounted pylons, at least the air-to-air weapons. The standard air-to-ground weapons were still mounted on wing-mounted pylons, but it could carry up to 4 of several different types of AIM-9 sidewinders, including a prototype radar-guided semi-active AIM-9C. These weapons would later be changed into the sidearms.
Horrible missiles, though, back in those days, wasn't it, for sidewinders? But all right, that's interesting. Interesting. How interesting. Okay, right, we'll leave the Crusader because it is a lovely piece of history, but we do have to leave it. Yak! I don't know any of these apart from the Yak 141. So these look like probably through the 40s to the Flashlight, which looks 50s. It looks like the
these aircraft would have basically all been contemporaries with the MiG-15/MiG-17. They were all the early stages of jet fighter development in the Soviet Union.
And you got some weird
up to the Yak-25, obviously.
You got some weird engine placements. If you look there, weird engine placement, and yep. Okay, that's fine. We're not going to go through all them, but you can see by what they are, where their contemporaries were, gunfighters and stuff.
Right. So the Yak seems to be the exception to this. It's a dual engine mounted on the wings, turbojet powered interceptor/recon aircraft.
Which one?
Introduced in 1955. The Yak-25 Flashlight.
The Flashlight, yeah, Roger. So what was that? Mid-50s? Did you say twin engine?
55 is when it was introduced.
Oh, it's very unique. That must be subsonic. Must be, yeah. That's subsonic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's subsonic to turbojets.
Yeah, it's got swept wings, so it's going to be transonic. But okay, that's fine. And now the big one, the well-known one, the Yak-141. This is the naval plane that lands vertically. It's the contemporary to the Harrier, isn't it?
Sort of. There's actually two. There's, I think it's the Yak-38 is the one that you don't see. Oh, that is a Harrier contemporary.
So what's the Yak-141? What's the one we've got here then? Oh yeah, because that might not have been the fighter. This is the fighter variant.
Yeah, so if you Google the Yak-38 and you look at the Wikipedia pictures on the right, you'll think to yourself, hang on, isn't that a Harrier?
Hang on a minute. We're going to have to do it now.
Whereas the Yak-141, its silhouette looks more akin to an F-35.
Right, so I'm looking at the Yak-38, and it is, it's a Harrier, a mid-mountain Pegasus design type idea. It's got some jet. No, it's different, Sherman. No, it's different because it's an F-35. Look, it's got the front opening hatch and the big front-mounted shaft-driven fan.
But you have to admit, when you look at it at first glance, it looks more like a Harrier.
Oh yeah, it looks like a Harrier.
Its primary flaw, however, is that unlike the Harrier, it did not have RCS jets to assist in maneuvering, meaning it was highly vulnerable.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yes, in fact, it was responsible for a number of accidents, not including the one that I think it was the Paris Air Show. That one was an air intake failure. Silly
billies. Right. Okay, but it's an impressive plane nonetheless, and anything that vertical landing is impressive.
Yeah. So Yak-141, sorry. Prototype aircraft never took part in active service, but it was a supersonic VTOL aircraft.
Interesting. Now, it doesn't. The front motors don't appear to be shaft-driven like the 35. They appear to be standalone jet engines. How interesting! They are the standalone. They've got 3 jet engines in the bloody thing. How interesting! Yeah. We're gonna have to do some more research on this at some point. But yeah.
So of course, eventually, I think they figured out that it's going to be cheaper just to go with a carrier launched and recovered supersonic aircraft, which is why they're using MiG-29Ks today.
Right, and let's have a look quickly.
Not to mention they only have one carrier.
And let's have a look at the Yak-41. So is this vertical landing as well, or is it not? Is this
the Yak-141 is VTOL.
It is VTOL, yep. And you can see there, look how really advanced that is. That's F-35 stuff. Look, yeah, I see, yep. And you've got your two burners there at the front. An impressive piece of machinery. I'd love to see this in real life.
Yeah, so it has 4 underwing hard points, 1 fuselage hard point. And was capable of carrying going to be capable of carrying weapons like the R-77 and the R-73.
Wow, R-77 Adder, yeah. How interesting. It's got the Archer, the Adder, and the R-27. It's got So it's got the flanker missiles basically. One interesting aircraft.
Yes.
Very good, Sherman. Very good. That brings us back to our picture, if I can find it. So that's the third of it done. That's part 1 of the video. Obviously, this is going to be hours and hours and hours of me talking to Sherman, but that is part 1 done. I hope you've enjoyed that. We've probably created more questions than we've answered, but that is GR style, you've got to admit. Cool. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. And we'll see you another time for part 2. Thanks, and see you later.